How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact, and it's another day in your life. You've made it. That's really exciting, isn't it? You're still alive. We have had a little vote, a community poll on the last video. Which Tekken characters shall I resample next in Vital? Thanks a lot for voting. Really appreciate that. We had King, 23%, Paul, 10%, Hayachi, 26%, Jin, 10%. But the winner was Martial Law, who has a wicked sound. And let me read through a couple of other comments. We've got Gleb, time for my dose of comedy and bass. I've got you covered, mate. Digipax, this is round one, let the battle begin. King of the Iron Fist tournament. Ellis, Nan's dead, bruv, so text yours instead. Don't know how you got my Nan's number, but I don't think you should text my Nan. I think get yourself down, Nan's or us, and get yourself a new robot one or something. The definition, a great convergence of two things I absolutely love, Tekken and Neurofunk, by one of my favourite content music providers. Thank you very much. I also thought it was quite a specific blending, but it seems to work quite well, Tekken and Neurofunk. Future sounds, no way, use Logic 2, doesn't seem too popular in this genre, just electronic music. I disagree, I think Logic is very popular, probably the second most popular. Corruptor, if Austin Powers was a neuro producer, you'd be him, man. Big up from Canada, you are beast. Shagadelic, baby. That was a terrible impression. Alright. Polo, how is sunset always on your room 365 days a year? I think he's referring to this over here, and I don't know if you can tell where it's from, but if you know which island in Greece it is, then comment down below. So let's get into today's video, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe, and if you're not new to the channel, just make sure you hit all of these beautiful vegetable buttons down below. If you want to support me a little bit further, you can jump on my Discord via Patreon, where you'll get this preset that I've made for you guys today. You'll get a discount on my production mentorship. You get some free NFT drops every now and again. You can watch my vlog updates. You can watch some exclusive videos on there. Lots of good stuff on there. There. Anyway, let's get into today's video. We're introducing Martial Law to the arena. So the sound I made today was using this sample from Law here, which sounds like this. And I turned that into a bass which sounds like this. And yeah, it sounds pretty nice in the mix. I mean, it's better than if you just had the sample running in there. I think we can agree it's better. Yeah, it's quite a nice blend, if you don't mind me saying so, of synth and vocal together. And I'm going to run straight over this patch in the Vital sample. A couple of other things I've done just for this little drop for the purpose of this video is I kept on using the Yoshimitsu sample from last time. Used that a little bit in the intro here, and then a little bit of a kind of Martial Law sort of just one shot as well. And then I got the Yoshimitsu bass running from the previous video, and I just bounced out the audio and sort of put some little gaps in the actual file so I could make space to add in kind of what would be the response bass here, the Law bass. So that's all kind of just what I did sort of behind closed doors. And yeah, now let's have a little look at the actual Martial Law bass that I've made. And I'll just take off the sidechain again, and we'll just jump straight into the Vital patch, starting with the voicing. So, the first thing that I've done is I've thrown in the sample into Vital here. I've turned it all the way up, and for this one I've actually pitched it down 12, and this was done sort of while I was sort of going back and forth and trying to get a good blend of oscillators with samples. Because the next thing, obviously, as you guys know, I'm going to add in my oscillator 1, and I'm going to FM from sample. And I just cycled through the different waveforms and tried to find one that kind of worked well with the sample, you know? I found that the sine waves and the triangles were a bit too soft, and I actually ended up sort of going for this pulse square wave here. And what I did was I actually turned down the amount of pitch, so I made it a -5, which is kind of like a perfect fifth. And this kind of makes sense when we add in the next oscillator. But there's one more thing I did, which was to add a phase disperse mode here, which kind of gets a bit of a nicer high-end texture to the sound, makes it a bit more noisy but kind of quite natural as well. And this is then going to all run through another sine wave, and this sine wave is sort of back in pitch again. It's at -12, and it's yeah, that's just nice and crunchy there, isn't it? So I'm kind of boosting the fundamental again by having it on -12, and it's FMing from oscillator 1, of course, and it's got this really nice movement on it, and that's just from the detuning. So I've just, you know, the whole movement is coming from the voicing here, and that kind of sort of times with the kind of composition that I've already got in my track quite nicely here at sort of 22%. And now I've sort of got this texture playing from the first oscillator. I've got the sample playing, and I've got this sort of low end sine wave in here now, but it's got a lot of movement on it, and it's a little bit it kind of takes out lots of volume at certain points during the detuning of the movement. So I've added another sine wave in as to sort of pad everything out and reintroduce a little bit more low end. So it kind of like, I guess, adds this extra like sustained sine wave to everything. And this is also FM'd from 1 again. Just helps to fill it out. So now it's like more of a full sound that doesn't have too many sort of dips and gaps in the sound. And then just before we move over to the filters, which are kind of the next most important thing, I've just used a few randomization modulations, and that's all that's really providing the movement is mainly the detuning again, and then randomizing a few things. But this is just mainly to get a bit of a more realistic and natural sort of high end. So I've just sort of randomized, I think, a little bit on the FM amount, a little bit on the phase distortion amount, and a couple of other things later, like the filter. But just it doesn't matter too much what I'm randomizing. It's just moving the parameters around a little bit and putting a bit of life into the patch. So let's move on next to the filters. So the main thing I wanted to do with the filters was pretty much to just tame the high end a bit, because there's quite a lot going on and it's quite loud and aggressive with all the FM and the kind of distortion mode. So I just wanted to add in a low pass filter frisch. So it's sort of just taking out the last bit of high end here, or just smoothing it off really. I don't want to sort of take it all off, and you can see it's quite a smooth sort of cut. And then to give this filter a bit of extra life, I've randomized it again just on the cutoff here. And you can see it sort of moves up and down in the sort of two lines that are split. If you kind of pay attention, there's a little red one behind it. You know, you can sometimes see the yellow one or the red one comes ahead or behind, and that's because I've set the randomization to stereo mode, so it's going to do the left and right randomizing a bit differently. And this is also providing like an extra bit of natural stereo width to the whole patch, because everything that I'm randomizing is randomizing the left and right very slightly. So that's really quite interesting actually. And then the second thing I've done is provide just a little bit of extra mid-range movement on the filter 2. I've done the phaser positive filter. I've set it to the middle to have these 3 sort of mid-range peaks, and then I've just mixed it in very slightly, and then we're sort of randomizing the mix and slightly randomizing the cutoff, but it's mostly, you know, around 200 hertz still. And it just, you know, without it, you just miss a little bit of that mid-range movement. I mean, all the way on, it's a bit too much because I'm sort of destroying the low end. You can see, you know, I start to take out a lot of low end and a lot of, you know, take out a lot of frequencies in the lows if I really use that a lot. So just balancing it a little bit here. Just to give a bit more mid-range movement pretty much. And, you know, that is essentially, I mean, with the filters, obviously, the first 3 oscillators and sample are all going into filter 1, so it's all turned on here. So signal chain wise, you know, we're going sample into oscillator 1, which is going FM'd into 2 and into 3, and the volumes on all of them are kept up on this patch. And then but then all of them get filtered through the low pass here, and then that goes directly into filter 2 just from this button here. So we get kind of going from there into there, and then into the effects. So let's check out those next. So with the effects, I've kept things quite simple. I've only really used my 3 top ones here, which are the chorus, EQ, and distortion. But let's just talk about exactly why I've used them. And I think I can explain the chorus a little bit better on what it is that it does, because it's kind of sort of putting the sound into a room, like I've mentioned before. But it's also kind of my depth control. So sometimes I hear producers or some of my students' tracks, or not tracks, basses, that they sound a bit too dry and a bit too crunchy and lacking a bit of depth. And I think this is my favorite way to add depth into the sound. And so my favorite way to use it is to crank up the mix so you can really hear the chorus a lot. Then next I'll choose how many voices will sort of fit with this particular bass, and the less voices, the more easier it's going to be able to blending, you know, a bit of depth. So I just want to add a little bit of depth. So I just want 4 voices here. And you could randomly do it with the sort of timing of the chorus, you know, that's set to the frequency here. But what I wanted to do is put it on the freeze mode and then modulate the delays on the randomize button as well. So it's kind of, because the randomizer is still randomizing everything at the same time. So it's sort of cohesive still in a way, I believe. So I think it's sort of going to be randomizing my FM amounts. It's going to be randomizing my little filter movements with this stereo effect and everything. And now it's going to also be randomizing the chorus voices all together at once. So because you can see the random movement here. So I've just fine-tuned the delay amounts on the random knob. And then, you know, I've played with the depth as well. So this is like where I'm really trying to blend the perfect amount of depth between the actual main mid bass and sort of the chorus that sort of sits behind it and provides that sort of room sound. So when I've got a nice balance, then I'm sort of happy with that. Then I'm going to turn the mix back down and then blend that all back in again. That's pretty nice. I've added a nice bit of depth, and that's the chorus. And then the EQ, I've just sort of looked at the frequencies and thought, you know, what can I sort of boost here, or what needs to go up? And it's a really full sound. There's a lot of high end, and I thought I'd just sort of bring a bit of attention back to the low end because I thought it might be missing a bit. So just boosting the fundamental here, really. And it sounds still okay. Doesn't sound like I'm distorting anything yet. Just bringing a bit more attention to that fundamental. And next, we're going to just distort everything a little bit just to sort of glue it all together with a bit of soft saturation here. And that is basically the effects done. And let's quickly move on to the macros. So I created one macro, and you can hear in the track that I've actually sort of automated it's come on and off. And if you look here in my sort of automation in Logic, you can see that I've got the first one is sort of off, and then the second one here is on. So when the sort of bass repeats, it's a slightly different version. So if you sort of pay attention, yeah, so it's a bit of a different variation just by playing with the macro. And so what I've done with the macro is I've labeled it tone. So we're just changing the tone of the patch. And I wanted to sort of bring out a little bit more the sound of. I wanted to sort of push away the vocal sound of Law and bring out a bit more of those kind of square harmonics. So what happens when we turn it up is we actually bring this slider down, so it becomes more of a square wave again here. You know, goes down into more of a square, and then I just kind of tweak the phase dispersion amount, I believe. Oh, maybe I don't actually. Sorry, I'll leave that as it is. We're just also modulating. The chorus comes up a little bit, and then the sample level goes down a bit because I was sort of pushing Law out of the way for a bit. So I'm bringing the level of that down a little bit. And then I'm sort of just taking out the volume of oscillator 3 here as well, which is sort of my extra padding kind of oscillator. I'm sort of just bringing the level back on that just because it kind of changes the tone of the whole patch, really. And I actually think if I were to mix it in a little bit around 0.6, I think that's a little bit of a better sort of blend. So I'm just going to go ahead and guess roughly, I think around there. It's probably a little bit of a nicer amount of, yeah, something like that. Let's try that. Yeah, that's a little bit better because I think I was taking out a little bit too many frequencies in the low end when I had it all the way turned up. So I'm just going to sort of blend it in around there. Yeah, so if we go back to the macros then, that's pretty much that done. And I think this kind of wraps up this video then. I think that's sort of the last most important thing to talk about. So let's just have a quick final debriefing. So that was the Tekken Neurofunk with Yoshimitsu and now Martial Law entering the fray. Yeah, I really like the way that the call and response kind of happens with the bass, you know, with this kind of Yoshimitsu bass and then the sort of gap that I've left for it, adding in this sort of like new Law bass that we've made and then using a couple of the original samples to fill out some gaps and yeah, kind of just having a nice sort of rolling drum beat and kind of nice rolling bass line underneath everything. Yeah, it sounds like quite a nice loop. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I hope it was somewhat entertaining, somewhat inspiring, somewhat educational. Thanks a lot again for watching. Really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wicked start to your week. And I'll be back very soon with some more sound design and music production wizardry. Yes, have a great day.